A very good evening to all of you. And in this video, I will talk about an essay written by Aijaz Ahmad. And the essay name is Indian Literature Notes Towards the Definition of a Category. We all know Aijaz Ahmed. He is a well-known literary critic and political commentator, and he is also known for his work in Marxist literary criticism. And he was born in India, and before his parent migrated to Pakistan after the partition, so his original birthplace was India, but later it was turned into Pakistan, and he had received his education in Pakistan and subsequently lectured in various universities in the United States and Canada. And at present, he is the professorial fellow at the Center for Contemporary Studies, Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, New Delhi. And apart from that, he is also a visiting professor of political science at York University, Toronto, in Canada. And he has authored many books, among which are number one, In Theory, Classes, Nations, Literatures, Lineages of the Present, Ideological and Political, Genealogies of Contemporary South Asia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Imperialism of Our Time, and on Communalism and Globalization, Offensives of the Far Right. These are the works done by the writer, and his most recent book is In Our Time, Empire, Politics, Culture, which was published by Verso, London-based company in 2012. And he is also a consultant editor of the magazine Frontline, and he is a regular contributor to that journal. And he has also contributed in journals like Socialist Register. And the essay, uh, the essay which we will now going to study, that was published in his book called In Theory. Got it? I have given you brief detail about the writer. So now let's dive in into the essay. We all know our Indian literature is not a the singular entity. Our Indian literature is completely different from other countries' literature. In US, you will get English literature, or you will get native American literature, right? There you will not get varieties of language and varieties of literature. But in our India, that is not the case. Uh, we all know our India speaks more than thousand languages. So when a country speaks more than thousand languages, then you can imagine how many literatures will be there, right? Therefore, uh, Aijaz Ahmed, in his essay Indian Literature Notes Toward the Definition of a Category, he has tried to examine this concept of Indian literature. Okay, uh, to what literary works or to which literary creations we can say that this is a part of Indian literature, or Indian literature, how we can categorize Indian literature, or how we can give a definition of Indian literature. These all kinds of things he has tried to critique, he has tried to explore through this essay. Got it clear? And throughout his essay, he has argued that Indian literature cannot be categorized because India has India has pluralistic culture. It has not homogeneous culture. It is full of multi-language, multicultural, multi-ethnicity. So when a country is full of multiple, or when a country is full of multi-ethnicity, in that place one literature cannot be produced, right? For example, if you are watching this video from Assam, then we have our own Assamese literature, right? And if you go to Bihar, there you will get Bhojpuri literature. And if you go to south, like in Kerala, there you will get Malayalam literature. And if you go to Andhra Pradesh, there you will get uh, Telugu literature. And if you go to Tamil Nadu, there you will get Tamil literature. If you go to West Bengal, there you will get Bengal literature. And if you go to Odisha, there you will get Odisha literature, right? So India is full of different kinds of literature. So it is very problematic to categorize Indian literature uh, into um, into one category, right? If someone has written a book from India, we cannot say that this work completely belongs to Indian literature. And if you come to Northeast, there are, if you go to Nagaland, if you go to Mizoram, or if you come to Meghalaya, their people, they used English language. So they create literary works in English language, but that English language is not utterly in the genre of British or American or New Zealand, right? They mix their own indigenous feelings in that English language or in that English literature. Though they are writing in English, they are not writing that thing for the European or the English people or the Canada or the American people. Rather, they are producing those literature to depict their own circumstance, their own feelings, their own emotions, right? So therefore, it is very hard to categorize Indian literature. We cannot give an exact definition of Indian literature. That kind of things he has tried to portray throughout the essay. Without any delay, let's begin the discussion. This video will be longer, and you have to be with me if you are willing to know about Aijaz Ahmed's uh, concept on Indian literature. And as this essay is an important content for your exam, even for your net, so you must know all about it. Got it? So let's read it. In this essay, Indian literature notes towards the definition of a category. Aijaz Ahmad examines the theoretical category called Indian literature by questioning its ability to capture and explain the varied multilingual literatures of India. This I have already talked that India has multiple language, and if you have multiple language, that means you have multiple literatures. There are many more literatures that I have not mentioned, because if I mention those things, then it will be more longer So you have to do your own research for that thing. And he argues that the concept of nationalism as it appeared with the rise of the modern nation state in the West cannot be easily applied to the cultural production of non Western societies, since that would homogenize the radical diversity of India's fluid geographical and cultural formations, which in turn embody many diverse public aspirations. The problem is that the concept of nationalism imposes the unitary logic of nation on the multifarious characters of these societies. So the main concept from this line we have gathered is that nationalism is quite complicated thing for Indian literature or Indian literatures. Why? Because if you come to Northeast India, then you will see here some separatist movements are going on, and for them that nationalism is different. On the other hand, in the Northeast, if you come to Assam, not only Assam, if you go to Nagaland, Manipur, there you will see that Naga wants Nagalim, an independent country called Nagalim. It is completely separated from India. They want that country. So that is an example of Naga nationalism, and it is, we can say little bit that it is extreme nationalism. And if you come to Assam, there you might have heard there are separatist movements, right? And there are many political parties too, which are regional parties, and they are too uh, advocate for nationalism, right? You might have heard অসম যুৱ পৰিষদ and অসম জাতীয়তাবাদী পৰিষদ, জাতীয়তাবাদী দল. These all are what? These all are a part of Assamese nationalism, right? So now, can you say that this is also a part of Indian nationalism? That will be quite complicated to say. Got it? So when these kind of things are going on in each part of the India, then it is very hard for anyone to say something about Indian nationalism in literature. And if you come to South India, like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, right, and Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, then you will see some of them want their own country, right? So for them, their nationalism is too different. Though they are in a one country called India, and we all know that we are under one constitution and we must abide by that. But despite that, internally, they think that what if we get our own country, right? Then we will give this name to our country. So that nationalism might be hidden, but that thing is there. So in every part, you will get different kinds of nationalism. And if you come to here, as the Kashmir file is going on nowadays, that's why I'm saying, if you come to this place in our Jammu Kashmir, there too you will see that various kinds of separatist movements are going on. Many people want separate Kashmir, and they want separate country, and some want that let's add Kashmir with Pakistan, like that. Their nationalism is different for some people, for not for all. And if you come to some part of Bihar, Chhattisgarh, some part of West Bengal, there you will see their nationalism is too different. They think that let's form our own Marxist government. Mao, the influence of Maoism you will see there, right? Nowadays you will see the Naxalism is uh, mushrooming day by day. So their nationalism is too quite different. As you have seen from our discussion that in the different parts of our India, different people have different opinions about their nationalism. So you cannot call that uh, India has one literature and India has one nationalism. Correct. Before independence of India, India might have one nationalism that now we want our own free country and we will rule on that country. But after the partition, many things have occurred, and the shape and the meaning and the definition of nationalism has downrightly uh, overhauled. Got it? So now let's go on. So here the writer is saying that the concept of nationalism as it appeared with the rise of the modern nation state in the West, it cannot be easily applied to the cultural production of non-Western societies since that would homogenize the radical diversity in its fluid geographical and cultural formations, which in turn embody many diverse public aspirations. The problem is that the concept of nationalism imposes the unitary logic of nation on the multifarious characters of this society. So we all know if you go to England, right? In England, you will not get cultures like our India. In our India, if you go, let's assume that you are going 100 kilometer from your own place, then you will see that there after 100 kilometer different kinds of culture is practiced. And if you cross more 100 kilometer, there too you will see more different, more unique, right? But in England that kind of situation is not there. And in New Zealand, there you will not get. In Canada, there you will not get. But in USA, there you will get. But there is not utterly uh, diversity because there are people, though in USA, multicultural people are there, but not uh, as like our India. Okay, so that is the difference. We cannot compare West with our India if you try to talk about literature. That is the thing the writer has tried to say. Aijaz also brings under scrutiny the category of third world literature. It is very difficult, he observes, to consider together the literary and cultural productions of such rather diverse geographical spaces. The aim of the essay, thus, is to examine some of the most fundamental difficulties that we face whenever we make an attempt to posit a coherent unity called such as that implied in the category of Indian literature in face of overlapping yet discrete histories of its major language literatures. So here the writer is saying, Aijaz Ahmad is saying that uh, actually third world literature that often used by the intellectuals, that is not the right thing to say. When you say third world literature, That is quite controversial, and it is utterly debatable. Okay, according to the writer. And this thing you can note it down. You all know, I think third world means what? Third world means those poor countries, according to West. Okay, there you will get our India too, and they categorize that if literature if literature is produced from this third world country, then the the quality will never be superior from the West. So that kind of hypocrisy, that kind of stereotypes you will get. So that kind of thing is rejected by the writer. Aijaz Ahmad believes that an entity called national literature has to be more than the sum of constituent regional parts of a nation if it is to have any cultural or literary efficacy in explaining the shared aspirations and dreams of the people who belong to the geographical territory of that nation. The existence of literature as a theoretical object, he further says, can only be established if it is examined in relation to the objective historical determinations of the development of a particular culture. This is so because such an approach alone may be enable us to base our periodization of a particular literature on the material shifts through which the various generic forms dominant during a particular period of historical time give way to other newer forms. One has to look beyond more chronological breaks to trace such objectives determination in the material development of a culture. We need to go beyond the historically given boundaries of language and the state, the sphere of culture and literature and its dynamics of development and growth. Ahmad says cannot be just superimposed on the formation of linguistic or state boundaries. This is so because both these spheres of human activity and creativity were in existence prior to the emergence of bourgeoisie nation state. In the case of India, this should be an important consideration since the growth of print capitalism in the country was a very unstable determinant rather than a concrete and invariable determinant, as was the case in the Western Hemisphere. Here, the writer has tried to talk about Indian national literature, right? And he has tried to say that if you are uh, imposing some kinds of boundaries and you have created a state and you are calling that particular newly created state work in literature that is utterly different, then that is not the right thing to do. That is not the right approach to do. If you are doing so, then you are omitting numerous objects, numerous things. I hope you have understood. And if you want to write in the same way the writer has said, then you can take the screenshot of this page or you can pause the video and note it down, whatever you like, your own choice. Okay, let's go to the another point made by the writer. Ahmad scrutinizes Ahmad scrutinizes the various ways in which the literary history of India has been organized hitherto and points out the problems associated with each of them. He argues that the theoretically efficient category of Indian literature should not be confused with the category of Indian histories as such. That is to say, there is something called the Indian history, which very much exists and which is a concrete movement across cultures, rulers, their kingdoms, and empires, and that exists beyond discrete developments in different regional entities, which all come under the category of India. So here the writer is saying that actually Though India has more than one culture, more than one religion, but we cannot categorize those things. But we can say that those all things are actually means those things actually unite or make India as India. So therefore, it is very hard to categorize theoretically Indian literature. And if we do so, then we are making error, we are making mistake by doing so. Okay. Then he said it was the Marxist historians who, working very hard, initiated the practice of this kind of history writing and opened manifold possibilities for future work in historiography and history. In comparison to this, the tradition of Indian literary history ostensibly lacks such theoretical insights as can shed light on the nature of the literary in the Indian subcontinent. He also brings to notice some of the most overlooked and generally unrecognized positions which bundle the diverse literary histories together while pointing out other troublesome practices associated with the writing of Indian literary history. Now he has talked about how Indian literary history is written, and the writer has said that as he practices Marxist theory. So he has said that the Marxist uh, writers have tried to give a new dimension in history writing in our India. They have opened many doors for new insights, perspective in Indian literature, which were never written before, which were never discussed, which were never um, tried to bring on the focus those things. And the first part of the essay, consisting of the first, second, and the third section, deals with the dirt of institutional sites which undertake the task of studying, analyzing, and critically reading the various language clusters in India in a comparative framework to construct a comprehensive understanding of what could be called Indian literature, although the object of study under this umbrella category has to be multilingual, yet it needs to be acknowledged that a coherent and unified understanding of Indian literature can only be built through hard and rigorous labor. Such work has been done by individual scholars, but their tradition has not been taken forward by institutions which should have consolidated and disseminated these traditions among the students and scholars. This I will not going to explain. You can take a screenshot of this thing. This has happened partly because Ahmad further argues there has been no tradition of sharing and circulation among the different linguistic communities of India, no tradition of mutual translation of different language literatures of India exists. This is a very pivotal point, vital point. You can note it down, and you should include this thing in your exam. The writer has said that there has been no tradition of sharing and circulation among the different linguistic communities of India, and no tradition of mutual translations of different language literature of India exists. Let's take an example here. You might have heard about Rabindranath Tagore, right? He has won um, Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913, I think, for his uh, body of work and for his work like Gitanjali, a poem of offering or what I have forgotten. So if we all know that that work was composed in Bengali language, but that was before the means when he has translated that work in English. Before that, nobody knew that that kind of means writing or that kind of literature was to uh, there in Bengal in their own Bengali language, right? So that's why the writer is saying that Just like that, Rabindranath Tagore, there are many more writers in their own native languages, like in our Assamese, Bengali, in Marathi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Sindhi, Bhojpuri, many more. And among these literary creations, there are very few literary works means that particular literary work has been translated into mutually understandable language. There are very few that kind of. For example, after the uh, translation of Getanjali into English, after that incident, the world had known about Rabindranath Tagore. And just like that, after that, that Gitanjali has been translated to into many Indian languages, but before that, that kind of thing was not there. So that's why the writer is saying here that different linguistic communities, they produce different kinds of literary works, but their literary works are never read by the other community because they are not translated. So as they are not translated, that work, though that work is a very crucial work, no one knows about it. That's why the writer is saying that that mutual translation work means approach must be adopted for mutual benefits, for our own Indian people's benefit too, right? I will not going to explain here. There are many more things are given, and those things are very simple. I will just read these things loud, and you can pause the video and take the screenshot. As a result, the works of particular language literature hardly reach the reader of other languages. Moreover, there has been no sustained effort to produce a systematic study of various language literatures on the basis of their mutual relations underpinned by the overlapping socio-cultural patterns of living and the crisscrossing historical realities. We do keep talking about Indian literature as a rule, but the required academic efficiency of the category rarely receives with the scholarship required to construct a coherent and systematic understanding of its history. The difficulty also lies in the concrete historical fact that the various languages of India have a more complex and overlapping relationship with each other than, say, the kind that obtains between English and French or between Italian and Spanish. The points of differentiation are less clearly marked. Moreover, the problems and difficulties in the availability of correct information regarding texts, authors, genres, modes of transmission and circulation, and the nature of the audience readership are a major handicap with reference to the formative periods of our modern language, which, as we all know now, have emerged through a long process of mutual interaction and sharing. The history of such mutual influence is quite varied and uneven. For example, we have a very little reliable information about the development of most of our language, like Tamil, Kannada, and Sanskrit. It is not very clear what historical conjectures endowed on this crisscrossing and interpenetrating languages, their differentiated identities, and the forms in which we find and understand them. Now, another problem which emerges from the lack of reliable information concerns the nature of what Ahmad calls the linguistic literary. How However, for instance, the Sanskrit language affected our understanding of the linguistic literary in the case of Tamil, this is something about which we hardly have any clear cut literary and historiographic data. The problem of tracing the movement of varied language clusters and the effects they had on the other languages in molding and transforming the sense of the linguistic literary across the geographical space is a point of serious contention. That there is thus only sporadic evidence available to help us see how the northern forms of bhakti, including style, vocabulary, themes, and innovations, affected the southern, or how, in the process of geographical movement, these northern forms themselves got transformed into something entirely new. For instance, even in the north, we have only uneven bodies of information regarding various regional languages, their overlapping vocabulary, and their historical differentiations into concrete linguistic clusters suiting the needs of respective peoples located in varied geographical regions of the north. We only know that the process of differentiation did take place around the 10th and 12th centuries. The vicissitudes of the transformation are little known, and these ambiguities have persisted to the present times. There are a few skeletal instances which shed some light on the differentiation of a few formerly overlapping languages, but the overall picture of the process which conferred the concrete distinctions on the relationship between various language clusters of India has been very little developed. Okay, there are many more things. I think I have to make another video. This video has already gone long, very long, longer. Okay, I will come up with the new video, part 2. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching the video. Keep on supporting by just watching. That's it. Bye bye.